Against all odds, the obviously pro-Palestinian Catherine Connolly won the Ireland presidential election in a spectacular fashion.
With the breaking news that Catherine Connolly will be the next president of Ireland following the concession of her opponent, Heather Humphreys. Less than an hour ago, she admitted and offered Miss Connolly her congratulations. Despite the concession, counting is continuing and no official results have yet been declared. Tallies from count centres show that Catherine Connolly does have a strong lead. She's an independent member of the Irish Parliament whose campaign has been supported by left-wing opposition parties, including Sinn Féin.
And despite the investment of war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu on her opponent who supported the genocide in Gaza, she emerged victorious and further giving a boost to the already pro-Palestinian position of the Ireland government. So let's dive into this a bit. First off, who is Catherine Connolly, this new president who's shaking things up? She's a 68-year-old independent politician from Galway with a background as a barrister and a long-time TD in the Irish Parliament. She's been on the left-wing side of things for years, backed by parties like Sinn Féin during her campaign, and she's known for her no-nonsense style, focusing on social justice, housing issues, and, a pretty vocal stance on international matters like Palestine. Her win was a landslide, pulling in 63% of the first preference votes, which is a record breaker in Irish presidential history.
I will be an inclusive president to listen to all of you. I will be making no distinction on the basis of votes.
It's not every day you see an outsider like her topple the establishment favourites, but Ireland's voters clearly wanted change, especially amid ongoing global tensions. To understand why her election feels like such a boost for pro-Palestinian views, we have to look back at Ireland's history on this stuff. It's not exactly new, but it's deeply rooted. Ireland has long seen parallels between its own fight for independence from British rule and the Palestinian struggle against occupation. Think about it, the Irish famine, partition, the Troubles. All that history of colonialism and resistance makes a lot of Irish folks empathise with Palestinians. Way back in 1974, Ireland was one of the first Western European countries to recognise the Palestine Liberation Organisation, PLO, as the legit reps for Palestinians. Then in 1980 it became the first EU member to straight up call for a Palestinian state. Fast forward, and Ireland was the last EU country to let Israel open an embassy in Dublin, not until 1993. More recently, in 2024, Ireland joined Spain and Norway in recognising Palestine as a state, and there's been massive public support, huge protests, boycotts, and even government pushes for things like sanctioning Israeli settlements. It's not universal. Of course, some critics argue this solidarity sometimes tips into anti-Semitism or overlooks complexities, but overall it's baked into Ireland's anti-colonial identity.
Given our history, it's time we called for an absolute ceasefire led in the UN and make our words mean something and call out the narrative for what it is. And the narrative is Israel is a rogue state. It is not a democratic state. It is absolutely going. That narrative has allowed a congressman come here just 2 months ago into this room who has said, go in and beat the SHIT out of Palestine. A congressman defeated by one of your colleagues and by another colleague in Fianna Fáil. How dare you shake your head? You stand up.
You have to conclude,
stand up and account for what we're going to do when you say there are war crimes and a genocide.
Yeah, thanks. I hope I'll get an extra 38 seconds as well, because there was a great amount of palaver being levelled at me there. So you have such vitriolic dislike for Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil that you cannot ever actually come above and rise to the moment. We are the first government in the European Union to say what Israel is doing is genocide. Do you hear that, Deputy? It is genocide. They're committing war crimes, and we're going to pass the occupied Palestinian territory. Okay, we're going to pass that. We're going to pass it. We're going to pass it as quickly as possible. It's going to go to the Foreign Affairs Committee in the month of June. While you're standing here just throwing brickbats at me, we're working to support the people of Palestine. And the only chamber I ever go into in the entire world where people don't acknowledge that Ireland, the government, the people of Ireland are standing with the people of Palestine, standing up for human rights, standing up for international law, is here when you get up and distort with your ideology the actions of this government. I'm proud of the people of this country. I'm proud that we went into an election and it didn't matter what party you were in. You stood up and said, we are going to support the people of Palestine. Get beyond yourself with this narrative of you have all the moral authority and we're terrible people. I'm disgusted and sickened.
In Parliament, she's ripped into the Irish government for not doing enough, like failing to pass sanctions on Israel or cutting ties over war bonds and Gaza policies. And right after her win, she didn't hold back. In her acceptance speech and early statements, she urged world leaders to stop the genocide in Gaza, positioning her victory as a moral stand against occupation. This has drawn backlash, especially from pro-Israel groups who call her a Hamas apologist, but her supporters see it as principled.
First of all, I think we want to acknowledge that genocide is going on in Palestine, and we want to acknowledge the deaths that we know about, almost 70,000 people. And I'm looking at you and I said, let's acknowledge what's happening. And the most important thing is to say it's genocide and to stop it. That's the first thing. And so we have various countries recognising Palestine now, which is positive, but belated, while the genocide unfolds under our eyes. So my voice is saying, please stop the genocide. Every country has a right to self-determine what they do, what type of government they have.
I want to talk to you about your views on Hamas, though, in specifically. And I asked you, because of that comment yesterday to BBC Radio Ulster, based in Belfast, broadcasting across the north, would you have said that the IRA was part of the fabric of the Catholic people of the north?
Well, let me just say first, Hamas, I have utterly condemned over and over. I've never been equivocal about it in their attack on the 7th of October. I was asked on that radio show yesterday, was that genocide? That was the level of questioning. Was that attack genocide?
On the October 7th?
On the October 7th.
But I'm asking you this morning why you would say Hamas is part of the fabric of the Palestinian people.
I'll try and answer that for you as best I can. They were elected by the people the last time there was an election. Overwhelming support for them back in 2006 or 7. And they are part of the civil society of Palestine. We are reliant on them for figures in relation to the deaths.
Do you regard them as a terrorist organisation?
They are prescribed as a terrorist organisation.
Do you accept that? Do you agree with that designation?
That's the designation. Israel is acting as a terrorist state. Both have to sit down at some stage. I mean, let's look at what Israel are doing and call it out for what it is. They're absolutely out of control. They have gone.
But we're talking specifically, Catherine Connolly, about Hamas. We do talk a lot about Israel and what is happening there. I do want to focus on Hamas with you this morning because of your comments yesterday. Do you agree that what they did on October the 7th
absolutely
were war crimes?
What they did was absolutely unacceptable. Both sides have committed war crimes, and hopefully both sides will be held to account. But history did not start on the 7th of October, and at some stage parties outside of Palestine and Israel must begin to look at what has led to this conflict and how it can be resolved. And resolved it must. In the meantime, the slaughter is going on and the genocide is going on. And I've travelled the country. I'll be travelling it again. And it's the top of the list for everyone that I'm talking to. Of course, all the other issues, housing and health. But the ongoing genocide, people are appealing to us, please stop it. The 80-something% of the people that have died or have received injuries are civilians.
But when you talk about them being part of the fabric of the Palestinian people, in May of this year, Amnesty reported that Hamas security forces were threatening, harassing, intimidating Palestinians who were protesting against them in Gaza, committing a serious violation, Amnesty said, of the rights to freedom of expression. Do you think they're the protectors of the Palestinian people?
I absolutely respect Amnesty International, and indeed they produced a report in relation to Israel that we never even discussed in the Dáil. And I respect all the reports, and I do my best to read them.
We're talking about Hamas and the Palestinian people.
We're talking about...
Do you regard them as the protectors of the Palestinian people at the moment?
I abhor violence on any side. As a mother, as a female, I abhor violence, and I will use my voice to promote peace in the world and peaceful solutions.
So you wouldn't want to see them in government in any future Palestine, would you?
You see, if we could for a little, history did not start on the 7th of October. There's a history behind this, and a history of the aggression of Israel in relation to the Palestinian people. As we speak today, we hear Trump talking about annexing more territory. We heard what he said he was going to turn the Gaza Strip into. So it's very important that we give perspective. It's very important that we learn from our own troubles and our own history.
As for what she might actually do to Israel now that she's president, well, keep in mind the Irish presidency is mostly ceremonial. It's not like she's calling the shots on foreign policy. That's the Taoiseach government's job. But she can use her platform big time. Expect her to keep hammering home calls for international action, maybe pushing Ireland to lead in the EU for tougher sanctions or boycotts against Israeli settlements. She could amplify Ireland's voice at the UN, urging ceasefires or investigations into war crimes. Symbolically, she might snub Israeli officials or boost ties with Palestinian leaders, making diplomatic waves. If bills come her way that touch on trade or arms with Israel, she could refer them to the courts if she thinks they're dodgy constitutionally. Overall, it's less about direct hits on Israel and more about rallying global pressure. Her win already feels like a signal that Europe's patience with the status quo is wearing thin, and she could inspire similar shifts elsewhere. Thank you for watching. I sincerely appreciate your presence and urge you to support honest journalism by subscribing to the channel to increase our reach. Until I see you in the next one, God bless you.